Hi there, I'm Lena Anani, and you're listening to She Wrote a Book, where I interview amazing women from all over the world who also happen to be published authors. I created this show to educate, entertain, and inspire you to be the voice you want to hear in the world. Now let's get started. You are listening to episode number 126 of She Wrote a Book, and today I'm interviewing Ann Miner, author of the book, The Bottom Line on Customer Retention, It Pays to Care. The bottom line on customer retention, it pays to care, reveals the secret to customer retention. Learn the 3 critical factors that play into customer retention, how to detect customers at risk, and how to build competitor-resistant relationships. Ann Miner is president and founder of the Dunvegan Group, a full-service marketing research firm established in 1987. She is an international speaker and best-selling author with an MBA, and she is a certified marketing research professional. Again, her book is called The Bottom Line on Customer Retention, It Pays to Care. You can find the link to purchase her book in our show notes for this episode at SheWroteABook.com/126. So, Anne, it's such a pleasure to have you as a guest today. My first question is this: what inspired you to write and publish your book?
You know, the book that we're talking about today is one of a series of books that I've written to help the clients that we work with understand kind of the behind the scenes of what we're doing for them and the research evidence that we built our model on. So our theories, our metrics, our practices have all been developed over, well, the company, as you can see, is almost 30 years old. And we have spent a good portion of that time as thought leaders, figuring out how to improve upon what is known and continuously improve on that. So many people had said to me, well, I don't really understand how it works. Of course, I have complete faith in what you're doing, but I would really like to have a better understanding of what's behind the scenes. And so that's what led me to begin the process of writing books in the first place. And of course, I had hoped that upon reading what had been written, that people would truly be better informed and educated and knowledgeable. But you have to keep writing it and reinforcing it because, just like any other message, the first time it may not be fully absorbed. So hence the reason for this particular book, which builds on my previous book called A Guide to Success with Customer Satisfaction. This is part of that whole series of learning how to please, satisfy, meet the expectations of the customers that you serve. That could be clients, it could be members, patients, whatever it is that you call the people that you serve. In fact, we use the same methodology with employees.
Oh, absolutely. That makes sense because, your boss is like a client. I've always thought of that. I've always had that mentality in the corporate environment. Like your boss is your client. I love that. So tell me why you think it's important or why does it pay to care?
So there are many ways of growing your business, but the best way is to keep the hard-earned customers that you have acquired. Otherwise, if you're allowing them to slip out the back door or leak out of the bucket, as we sometimes say, then you're running it just to stay in place. So you have to replace every lost customer. And so if you have the means to connect with your customers, to understand what it is that made them decide to do business with you, what it is they appreciate and value about the products and services you provide, so that you can keep doing more of what your customers appreciate, you have the opportunity to build a strong competitor-resistant relationship. Of course, you also need to understand what annoys your customers or, the problems that they've experienced so you can remedy those and have people come back to you appreciating that you have made a graceful recovery. But the fundamental thing is that you need to care about what your customers want from you, expect from you, and appreciate that they get from you in order for you to build the kind of relationship that will keep them with you.
And why do you think there's still so many companies and businesses today that don't grasp that don't focus on the customer and customer satisfaction?
Well, I'll tell you that there's a number of layers to the answer of that question. Often what we see is that, the head of the company, the CEO or chief executive officer, does have a customer focus and a concern that customers be satisfied, served well, and retained. But they have a sales team that are rewarded or compensated or incented to get new business. So they are not focusing on the customers they already have because their take-home compensation depends on bringing new business. So what we get in practical terms is an organization who's constantly chasing new business because that's what we're rewarding, and not necessarily paying attention to the existing customer, whether that's the customer that's right in front of you in the store, how we serve those people that come to our retail outlet or call us or go to our website to order our products. We're mostly interested in the new ones. And even today, I had an experience myself where, I'm being offered exactly what would be given to a new customer, even though I'm a long-standing renewal. I'm not being rewarded as a loyal long-term customer. I'm being given an extra bonus as if I was a new customer. So you can see that there's a disconnect there.
What do you mean by that? That you're getting a bonus and treated like a new customer?
Well, often you see that new customers are given a special discount or kind of a prize. When you buy this product, you get an extra bonus of whatever. I think if we were to use, let's talk about a stove, for example, that if I was a brand new customer to that particular business, I might get a set of cookware with my stove, which has been discounted $200 or $300. But if I have been with that company for a number of years, decades maybe, and this is the third or fourth stove I've bought from them, I'm not given that same incentive. So when I say there's a disconnect, like why are we rewarding the new customers in ways that we don't reward those who are loyal to us? So again, that we talk about customer satisfaction and customer retention, but our actions don't actually support that conversation.
That's interesting. Like how where do you think that kind of mentality comes from, though? Like, where did this idea that let's just focus on bringing in that, the influx of new customers, let's focus on rewarding them and then not rewarding our loyal customers? Or actually, let me ask you this. Totally switching gears real quick. Let's focus on the solution. Like, what are some examples of companies who are doing it right, who are honoring those loyal customers?
Well, the challenge there is that there aren't very many. The focus is typically on growth, and in order to grow, the theory is we need more customers, which of course you do. You also need those customers to spend more with you or buy more of your products and services, whether that's, through a line extension or an additional product line, or whether it's just simply by consuming more of whatever your product is. But the idea of retaining and building loyalty is one that's only come along, in the past couple of decades. And as I mentioned, if we continue to reward new customer acquisition and don't have a reward system for customer retention, then we're not going to get that behavior. Some companies have split their customer care teams into those that are responsible for finding and attracting new customers, and that's all they do. They're often called hunters. And then a different group whose responsibility it is for customer care, that is to build relationships and nurture and take care of existing customers. And those people are often called huggers. So in sales language, when you parse that out and let people do what they're best at, you get a better result than if you put all of that responsibility onto one team. Those who are listening to customer feedback and hearing and acting on, whether they're hearing requests to do something differently or complaints, those that are hearing and acting on that feedback are also building stronger relationships. Sometimes, and you might have experienced this too, until you have had a difficulty or a dissatisfying experience and someone fix it for you, you don't really have a connection to them. But once they have recovered that situation gracefully, then you do feel that you have a relationship with them.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell a story about how one specific company just blew my mind with how they handled a situation. They just went above and beyond unexpectedly, and I've been one of their raving fans. I'll go ahead and say it. I'm not an official, or they're not an official sponsor or whatever, but it's StubHub, and these tickets fell through, and they just came through for me, and they were just above and beyond. I love it. So my last question for you is this, Anne. What do you love most about being an author?
So what I love about being an author is the opportunity to share what we've learned and what we see as the potential with the reader. And I especially love it when they actually read what I've written, which as an author is sometimes a little bit difficult to accept, that people will even buy your book, bring it home, put it on the shelf, and never even crack the cover. But I love it when people do take the trouble and the time to actually read what's written and come back and ask questions or disagree with me. But let's have an ongoing interaction about the knowledge, the information, the experiences that we're sharing.
That's beautiful. Well said. Well, Anne, thank you so much for being our special guest today. We will have a link to your book in the show notes for this episode, and our listeners can find that at SheWroteABook.com/126 to learn more about our author and her wonderful book. Thanks again, Anne. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And cut. Awesome.
Thank you for listening to She Wrote a Book. If you enjoyed this episode, then subscribe now so you can automatically get access to all new episodes, and feel free to share your inspired thoughts with us in the comments too. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, may you always feel good and make magic.